Hi everyone. Thanks for registering as a student on the Postman Academy. Now that you are here, let's dive into the practical part of API Fundamental Student Expert Certification. I am Achal Mishra and I work as a developer advocate at Postman, and I'm super excited to guide you through this journey step by step. So let's get started. Now, I'm hoping that all of you have been onboarded onto the Postman Academy because you are here, right? So you all have registered yourself as a student, and then you all can see and access this particular certification, right? Now, if you will come over here, you will see that there are overall 36 lessons that we are going to complete within this tenure of 2 hours, and then finally be able to claim our certificate. So let's get started. Now, let's start with our very first lesson that says before you start, which contains the list of the prerequisites. And good news is that there are no prerequisites as such. So, yes, whether you are someone who is just curious about what are APIs or you are someone who is curious about how the internet works behind the scenes, this is the right place. Okay, talking of that, let's talk a little bit about the course overview. So, throughout this course, you will be role playing as a digital librarian. And as a digital librarian, you will be using the library API and you will be using that to complete the day at work of managing the books in the store or in the database, okay, in the library, right? So, let's see, sounds interesting, right? So, we will be doing a lot of things. Just assume, like, this is going to be your very first day as a librarian, and you will be assigned with a set of tasks that we are going to do together, and finally be able to complete all these tasks and get the reward, that is our certificate. So let's get started. The next page is about the registration. And if you are seeing this and if you are, in this video, watching this video, I'm assuming that you already have done this step. So you don't have to repeat this once again, right? Because we have already registered ourselves as student onto the Postman Academy, right? So let's quickly go ahead and click on next module, that is what are APIs. And talking of that, we have talked a little bit about APIs in the start, right, when we were covering the theoretical part. But in this particular lesson, I am going to be more focused towards who actually works with APIs. Now, once again, quick heads up, feel free to carry forward and go through all the lessons and all the content of the lessons at your own pace if you want to. And you can also revise these steps, like these everything for you, because we have basically added all this content for you, right? So please feel free to go through the entire content by pausing this video. And yes, now, talking about who works with APIs. So conventionally, it's very normal for techies to think that, or for people like us to think that APIs are definitely only for developers, right? So if you want to work with APIs, if you want to interact and engage with APIs, you need to be someone who at least knows tech, right? Or like has to be tech savvy. But according to latest state of the API report, almost half of the survey respondents identified as holding non-developer roles. Interesting, right? So we saw these respondents coming from all the non-conventional backgrounds, that is, coming from non-developer roles such as management, solution architects, business, and data analysts, educators, and researchers. Now, all of these roles benefit from the APIs and from the convenience that is provided by APIs. In short, what does that mean? That API use is not just limited to people who are into tech or the IT industry, right? Okay, now, over the next lesson, we have talked a little bit about the chronology of understanding about APIs with the help of, thinking of APIs as a waiter at a restaurant. And we have covered this already. So I'm going to quickly skip this and then head to the next lesson, that is types of APIs. Now, to understand different types of APIs, I'm quickly going to take an example of my recent activity that I did on my favorite or not so favorite platform or mobile application, that is Instagram. Of course, because I end up spending good amount of time on Instagram regardless of whatever work I have to do in the day-to-day life, right? So yes. I recently went to my trip to, I had my trip to NYC, and I was, having that good time of my life, right? And of course, I wanted to share it with my friends that, hey, I'm here at NYC enjoying my life and, like doing great things here, getting to meet, getting to attend a lot of conferences, meet a lot of people and all of that, right? And all out of all of that, I'm also, here at Times Square. So I definitely want to share that with my friends. So what do I do is throughout this process of sharing everything or all the things with my friends, I actually use three different types of APIs. And I'm going to talk about that. We all do that, but yes, I'm actually going to talk about that, so that we can understand about all these three different types of APIs in a much fun and relatable way. Now, the first thing that I do is I land up at Times Square and I click a good selfie in front of that street, right? Now, in this particular moment, I'm actually using the hardware API. That is the API which basically is used for, or the type of the API which basically uses to talk with the software. That is hardware to software communication. Okay. So how does that happen? Because I take a selfie. So of course, what exactly is happening is that my phone's camera is talking to the operating system. Okay, let's go to the next step. Now what I'm going to do is, after I have taken my selfie and I feel like, wow, let's post that, then my sudden conscious tells me that, hey, Achal, this is this generation, and are you really going to post that unfiltered raw picture? I mean, no, think twice, right? People are going to judge you and all of that, right? But they are friends, but still they can judge because they are humans, right? So now what I do is I basically go ahead and take help from all these filters that are available to me, which I can actually use in my story and make my story 5x or 10x better with all these added filters. On the top of that, what else I can do? Using the site, and in this case, I'm using the software library APIs. What else I can do using software library APIs? I want to share with the, again, I want to share my location with the friends, right? So that they can actually know that I'm here at Times Square. So I click on the location section, like the locations button, and then it fetches my real-time location or the current location. And then I can see and I can basically add Times Square NYC. Okay, what else? I can actually add music because I'm at Times Square and I am at NYC. I'm in NYC, right? So of course, I would want to post that song which everyone wants to once they actually land in NYC, and that is going to be Empire State of Mind. So yes, I do that. I quickly go to the music button, I type in Empire State of Mind, and then here I have my music added. Now, the final step is going to be sharing it with my friends so that they can actually interact and they can engage with it and they can say like, wow, yeah, you're here, you're enjoying and all of that and everything, right? And that's, and just make me happy. Okay. Now, in that case, I'm going to use web APIs. Okay. So that once I share it with my friends, friends can basically interact, like my post, and then, like engage with that. So throughout this entire process, I'm not sure whether this example was very much convenient or not, but I really could think of this example at the moment because it was, like it is very relatable, right? Because we all end up using Instagram, on day-to-day basis, and it uses a lot of our time as well. So yes, throughout this process, we use three different types of APIs. That was hardware APIs, software library APIs, and web APIs. In short, if you will actually see here, we have talked I have also mentioned this example as a part of the course, and that is hardware API for the app to talk to your camera, software library API for the image to be processed with filters, and web API for sending your image to Instagram's server so your friends can like it. And now that we have understood about the types of APIs or the different types of APIs, now let's talk a little bit about the architectures. Now, there is definitely not just a single way to build and consume APIs. There are a lot of ways, right? And if you will basically go through some of the most common ways of consuming APIs and building APIs, these are some of them. The REST API, representational state transfer, GraphQL, WebSockets, webhooks, SOAP, gRPC, MQTT, among others. Okay. Now, in this course, our focus is going to be specifically on the REST APIs, since this is the most widely adopted API architecture. So yes, stay tuned, and we will be talking a lot more about the REST APIs, and we will be using this architecture throughout the course. So let's get started. Apart from that, there are also some other things which are mentioned here in this lesson. Let's quickly go through that as well. So when we talk about access, okay, so when we talk about APIs, there is also another important thing, that which API is accessible to who. So when we talk about the accessibility of APIs, there are different types of accessibility options or visibility options that we can actually have for our APIs. Now, first one is public APIs. As the name suggests, it can be consumed by anyone who can just, like search and discover that API. Private APIs, it can only be consumed within a particular team or an organization by you and your team, right? And it is not public. Third is partner APIs. If you are someone who is working with a partner organization, right? Like you are working in partnership with an organization, then you can actually work around, and you will be working in an environment which will be with where the accessibility will be in terms of the partners, right? So that will be partner APIs. Okay. Now, let's quickly go ahead next and see what do we have. Oh, looks like it's time for a quick check-in. So kindly pause the video here and attempt the quiz questions for this chapter. Now, don't worry, please take your time and come back when you are done, because I'm just going to quickly take a sip of water while you are attempting this quiz. Awesome. I hope you all have completed the quiz and you all got your answers correctly. Let me quickly take this quiz again and see what exactly is the quiz and what are the correct answers. Let's discuss that. What is an API? Pick the best answer from one of the choices below. Okay, so file format for images? No. Apple's new iPhone programming language? Interesting, but it's going to be hell expensive if actually that becomes true. A contract that allows code to talk to other code? I think we have talked about this quite a good amount of time to actually come to the conclusion that yes, this is the most, in layman terms, this is the best definition of an API, right? Or yeah. Now, next question is, what are some different types of APIs? So there are REST APIs, yes. GraphQL, yes. gRPC, electric sockets? No, right? I hope you have not chosen this. Let's submit, and we hope that, oh yes, both our answers are correct. Now we are good enough and sufficient, and we have sufficient knowledge to head back to the next module, that is introducing Postman. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. So Postman is a collaborative API platform. I would love to emphasize on the term, and I want you to think about this term as well, that is collaborative. Why? Because Postman basically simplifies each step of API lifecycle, and it streamlines collaboration. Why? So you can basically create better APIs faster and consume them with ease. In short, if you will actually see here, this is a very, very, like I feel that this is the best diagram to explain the entire use case of how the developer onboarding looks like onto an API platform, right? Onto Postman, right? And what all we can do and achieve just being on one platform. So if you will see over here, as a customer or as developers, we can actually complete this entire life cycle, the entire API life cycle, by just being on one platform. And that is starting from designing, developing, testing, documenting, mocking, monitoring, and distributing the APIs, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about the working with APIs then and now, and what exactly prompted our CEO, Abhinav Asthana, to basically invent and have something like Postman into the market or into this industry. So, if you will see, before Postman was invented or before Postman came into the picture, everyone and all the developers used to work with curl command, right? And now here, if you will see, there are a lot of things that is happening inside this, this curl, inside this curl command, right? Like there are multiple commands over here. Now here, if you will see, we are trying to fetch data about GitHub user Postman Labs. Okay, now I'm not sure what all you can fetch from the details which are mentioned over here. I hope you can fetch something, because if you are someone who is used to working with the curl command, but as a first time user, this is really overwhelming for me, right? To extract, to basically extract any information and to be able to see anything that I can actually work with. And it is good, right? You can say that it is good, of course it works great. But once we actually make the API call, the API response data is lost in the river of terminal. And of course, at the end, you also don't have the visibility of the metadata of the response without adding more details to the command. Now, let's see how we actually can do the same thing on Postman or with Postman. Now, we have done the same thing, and here is the same call that we have done, but using Postman. Now, the moment I look at this, even as a first time user, this looks so much better to me, right? I can actually abstract all the required information. I can get an idea about what exactly is happening into this call, what I'm getting as a response, what is the status code, what exactly is the response body that I have received after sending this request, and all of that, right? Now, if you will see over here, that's how we invented Postman, right? Because we realized that this is a problem in the developer market. And if we bring a tool like Postman into the industry, this is going to be a game changer. And rest is the history, because now we have more than 500,000 developers, sorry, more than 500,000 organizations and over 30 million developers who are using Postman for their day-to-day use cases, whether it is whether it is about testing, documenting, designing, distributing, mocking, or monitoring. Postman comes so much handy into the developer ecosystem. Okay, enough talking about Postman. Let's quickly now talk a little bit about the API first world. So, talking of that, Postman has a vision of an API first world. And into this API first world, our vision is to have over 100 million developers who are connected through APIs. And APIs basically take the center stage as primary building blocks. Now, in that API first world, in the API first world, there are three important things or three important considerations. First one, APIs are considered as number one priority. Second, APIs are easily consumable. And third, APIs are easily discoverable. So, to learn a little bit more about Postman's vision, our creative team, our creative designing team has made this beautiful graphic novel to help users understand about our CEO's vision, right? And how exactly, what exactly does the API first world look like with a lot of good and beautiful animations. And this one is completely for free because it is not a hard copy. So yes, you can just click on this and you can actually scroll through the pages and learn more about the API first world. Okay, let's head to the next section. And it looks like we are on the second quiz. Interesting. Let's see and let's quickly attend that. Okay, again, please feel free to pause this video and go ahead and attempt the quiz on your own, because it will actually help you to understand your progress, which is equally important, right? Which should be very much important. So please pause this and then come back. Okay, let's click on this and let's click on start the quiz. So here the question is, Postman has a vision for an API first world. Yes, in the API first world, what are the correct options? Okay, first option is APIs are considered as a number one priority. Absolutely. APIs will make you famous on TikTok. Wow, interesting. All the developers will be so famous, if that was the case. But yes, that's not the case. And we are not, and especially being in India, we know. Okay, I won't say much. APIs are easily consumable. Yes. API stands for Application Postman Interface. Is it? No. If there is some chat section, please mention the correct, like please correct this and tell what exactly is the, like what exactly is the right full form of APIs. Okay. Now, fourth option is APIs are easily discoverable. Absolutely. Let's submit the quiz. And yes, we got all the answers correct. So let's head to the next module, and that is your first API request. So enough of talking. Now we are actually going to get our hands dirty on the platform and getting to learn a lot more about the platform and about APIs with all the hands-on part that we have to do now. Okay. To start with, what we're going to do is we are basically going to start with our very first task, that is going to be creating a workspace. And for that, we are going to navigate to postman.com. So let's quickly come over here. And the moment you come over here, you will see a section or a button that says workspaces, right? Now hover over this and click on this drop down. And once you click on this, you will see the option to create a new workspace. Let's quickly click on that. Now, once you will come over here, you will see that we have a lot of options and a lot of templates available for us to not start from the very scratch, but take a reference from these templates and build on the top of that. But because it is a course and we want to build that from the very scratch, we will be going to select blank workspace and hit next. So let's do that. Now, once you're over here, let's quickly do the naming of the workspace. For the naming of the workspace, as it is an instructor-led workshop, so please remember to make sure that you are adding the names correctly and as instructed, because it may end up causing some trouble when you are actually on the final step of, just about to claim the badge, but there is some small tiny spelling mistake, or I mean, I have not made the course like that, but sometimes it can happen like that, right? So of course we want to avoid all of those mistakes, and we definitely want to make sure that if we see the error, it is going to be some debugging error and not a spelling mistake, right? Okay, so let's come over here and let's quickly paste the workspace name, and let's see the next step. The next step is to select the workspace type or the visibility of the workspace. For this and for the course, we are going to choose the internal workspace option. Why? Because we are going to work within our environment, right? We are going to be working on this API on our own, and we can also share this. We can also share our progress with others, and if we want others to see what exactly we are building on, so we can actually share that with others if you want, right? So let's choose internal and let's quickly click on create. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about what exactly is a workspace. So workspace basically acts as a parent folder, which consists of all your collections. And then inside that, we have all our requests. So it is like a parent folder, which keeps all your collections and requests safe and assembled in a particular folder, right? In the main folder. So that was our very first task, and we have done that successfully. So let's quickly go ahead and click on the next step and start with the next step that is going to be, or the next task that is going to be creating a collection. So if you will already see, the moment our workspace was created, we can already see this prompt which says to create a collection, right? Now, either you can click on this and create a collection, or you can just click on this plus button and click on create new collection, whatever works for you. FYI, similar to workspace, we also have a lot of template examples here, right? We can actually explore the different types of templates that is available to us. But for now, we want to choose the blank collection. So let's go ahead and choose that. Now for the collection name, let's go back and copy the name that we want to give to our collection. So that is going to be Postman Library API V2. Let's name this as that, and we are done. Okay, now we are finally done with our collection part as well. Now we are going to start with our very first task as a librarian. Interesting. And that is going to be get the list of all the books which are present in the library API. Okay, because that is going to be a very first task, right? As the very first day at our office in the library as an employee, our first task is to get the list of all the books that is basically present in the library catalog. So let's do that. Now, for that, what we are going to do is we are basically going to add a request. So let's quickly do that. Now for the request, please again make sure that we are adding the requests as it is mentioned. So our first request, as it is mentioned here in the academy, is going to be get books. So I have already named my request as get books, right? We already have that. And now we are going to fill in this request section, which consists of the method, the request URL, and all the other things, right? So let's quickly start with adding those details. For the request method, because we are going to fetch and retrieve the details of all the books, we are going to choose the get method. In a little bit, like in just some time, I'm going to also explain the other different types of other request methods as well. But for now, let's quickly stick to the task. And then once we hit enter, I'll talk a little bit about the request method, the request URL, and all of that. Now, for the request URL, we have the URL here, right, which is https library-api.postmanlabs.com/books. So let's paste that here and we are done, right? Now what we are going to do is we have two things ready here in the request section. That is get request method, that is to retrieve the information. And then we have our library API from where we are actually going to see the library catalog, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to quickly come here and click on send. And let's see what do we get. And yes, we got our first 200 OK of this course. Congratulations. Okay. Now, once we actually hover over and look at the response section in a more clear way, you will realize that there are there are a lot of things actually present in the response section. First one being 200 OK because it is very shiny and, like that green light, the green highlight is there as well, right? Apart from that, we have received this JSON, right? This pretty JSON, which consists of all the books which are present in the library. You can see there are a lot of books, a lot of, on the basis of a lot of parameters, everything is mentioned, whether the title, author, genre, whether it is checked out or not from the library, and all the other details as well, right? That's interesting. Now, let's go back and talk a little bit about what exactly are the request methods and what exactly is the request section all about, because we already have seen the response section, right? Now, whenever we make an HTTP call to a server, we have to necessarily specify the request method that we are going to use, which basically will help the server to understand what type of operation we are going to perform, right? For example, you can, for example, the CRUD operations, right? That is what we are actually going to do overall in this, throughout this course. So let's say when we talk about the CRUD operations, it is create, read, update, and delete, right? So just to understand the CRUD operations better and relate that to the method names, let's talk a little bit about the different types of methods. First one being get method. Get method, as the name suggests, getting something or reading the data or retrieving the data. Okay. So whenever we use get method, it is going to be about retrieval of a data, right? Retrieval of the data from the server. Next is post method. Post method basically means sending a data or posting a data to the server, right? Now, next one, put or patch. Put or patch basically means updating the data, which actually means that you want to update an information on the existing server, right? And depending on what you want to do, if you want to update the entire part or let's say an entire book, then that means you will be using the put method. If you want to update a particular parameter of the book, for example, the checked out, right? Whether the book was issued or not, whether it is true or not, or it is true or false, right? In that case, you will be using the patch method. Similarly, last one is delete method. As the name suggests, whenever you want to delete something from the server, you will be using delete method. Okay, I hope we are clear on that and we are clear onto the different types of HTTP methods. Please also note that these are not just restricted to that. You can actually have a look at the list of all the different methods that we have. But throughout this course, we will be restricting, we will be using and we will be working with these 4 different types of methods. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the request URL. Moreover, whenever we talk about or whenever we work with an API, documentation is very important, right? So of course, it is very important that whenever you start working with an API, you always and always go through the documentation first. So similar to that, we also have a documentation for our library API, right? And if you want to read that, you can actually go through the entire documentation and see the entire, what exactly the entire, the entire collection is about, all the requests are about, and what exactly is this API about, right? So please feel free to have a look at that. Okay, now let's deep dive into the request URL and let's understand that in more detail. Now, if we actually look at the request URL, right, that is https library-api.postmanlabs.com/books. So here you will see that the entire request URL is divided into three separate parts. The very first part being the protocol, which is basically your HTTP or HTTPS, right? That's what exactly is the protocol, right? Now, next part or the second part is your host. Now, host basically means where exactly is the location of the server, right? So whether it is github.com, it is linkedin.com, it is instagram.com, it is facebook.com, it is x.com, right? Similar to that. So that is going to be your location of the server or the host. And last but not the least, the last part of the request URL is the path, which basically means the route on the server or the direction or the specific route that we are going to actually have a look at, right? So basically in this case, when we are actually talking about our API, like our library API, you will see that we have this as the protocol, then we have this as our host, and then we have books as the path. Okay. I hope you all have understood this. And now let's talk a little bit about the response section. And in that, from all the things that we already have seen, one important thing is the response status codes. Okay, so basically, on the basis of what exactly we are sending, right? What exactly we are sending, like what exactly is the request that we are sending, and to determine that whether the request has been successful or failed, we actually get notified and get to know about that via these different types of status codes. So starting off, we are going to talk about these four different status code families. And the very first one is 2XX family. Now, this is basically called as successful family, which basically means that if you have received a 2XX, right, whether it is 200, 201, 204, it basically means that it is that your request was successful. Okay. Now there may be some times where there is no content in the servers. Of course, in that case also you will get a successful response. But again, because there is no content, so of course you will be getting 204 okay in that case. Now, next code range is 3XX. Now, this basically is called as the redirection family. So, whether if you will see a status code like 301, right? It actually means that the path has basically been changed or moved to a new URL, right? So in that case, you will be seeing 301 or 3XX family. 4XX, I think whether you have been someone who has worked with APIs or not, but yes, we all have seen this 404, we all have seen that 404 not found somewhere or the other, right, at one point in life, right? So 4XX or client error family basically means that whenever you get this request, there is some error made on your part, right? Whether it is a bad request, it is unauthorized request, it is not permitted, or it is not found. Okay. Last but not the least, we have 5XX family. That is going to be the server error family, which means that there is no error on your part. You have done everything successfully and you have requested it correctly, but there is some issue on the server side. Now, in that case, you will see 501, 502, 503, 504, which actually means there is some error on the gateway side. It may be an internal server error, it may be the bad gateway error, or something around the gateway. Okay. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and let's see what do we have to learn in the next lesson. And that is going to be request response pattern. Now, whenever we talk about the working of APIs, it is very important that you understand this fundamental concept, that is request response pattern. So here, if you will see in this example, we have a client, we have a server, and then there is network. So what exactly is happening is this diagram basically represents, or the request response pattern basically represents how computers communicate over a network, right? And in this case, if you will see, an API acts or basically is an interface that lets us know what kind of response to expect and when to make certain calls to a server. For example, in our recent case, or in our very first request that we made, that was the GET request, right? We made an HTTP GET request for this particular request URL, and we received the required response from the server. And that is how the entire request response pattern looks like. Okay, now that's time for our next quiz. That is quiz number 3. So let's quickly go ahead and attempt this quiz. Please pause this video again and please attempt the questions. There are 2 questions. Please attempt them and then be back. And then we will see the answers and we will proceed ahead. Awesome. I hope you all have been able to attempt this and you all have gotten the correct answer. Let's quickly go ahead and take this quiz once again and let's see what exactly are the questions. Let's do it very quickly. The question is, you're given 3 blocks of text. Each block is part of the request URL. Which of the answer choices below list these parts in the correct order? HTTPS is the protocol. Okay. Library is the host. Okay. And then books is the path. So I hope you all have chosen the 4th answer as correct. Not sure. Let's see if, if I made a mistake or if I'm correct or not. Okay, the next one is that we have to match the code ranges. Let's quickly do that in the correct order. So 2xx basically means success. 3xx is redirection. 4 is the client side error and 5 is the server error. So let's choose this and let's submit. And yes, we got both the answers correctly. So let's now head to our next module and let's get started with understanding a little bit about the parameters, or you can say the request parameters. So once we start understanding that, it is important that we understand the use case of variables. Now, Postman allows us to save values as variables so that we don't have to repeat ourselves again and again in order to use a similar or the same value, the same the same URL again and again on each and every request level. Okay. So for that, what we do is we basically work with variable. Now, in that case, our first task is going to be setting a variable. And what we are exactly going to do here is, let's zoom in over here. And if you will see, we have this HTTPS library-api.postmanlabs.com. I want you all to select this, okay? Remember, don't select anything after .com. You have to select only till .com, okay? Now, once you're over here, either you can hover over that and you will see the set as a variable option already, or you can actually do a right click or, like double click from your Mac if you are on your MacBook, and then you can choose set as a variable. Let's quickly use this option. Let's quickly select this option, that is set as a new variable, and name this variable. Let's head back to Postman Academy and see what exactly we have to name this variable as. And if you will see, we have to give the name as what? Base URL. Okay, let's quickly come over here, copy this and add it over here. Awesome. The value is automatically added because that's the value that we have chosen. And scope is going to be collection level because we are going to be working with this particular base URL or this value inside this collection only, right? So we have other options as well. If you want to define a variable on global level, environment level, world level, you can actually do that. But for now, we are going to use this URL only inside this collection. And that's why we are using the scope as collection level. Let's quickly click on set variable. And yes, now we have our variable set And now whenever we have to use this URL, we don't have to copy this URL again and again from the documentation and then use it. What we can do instead is we can just open up a curly braces, and then we will automatically see this option to add the variable, and then we can work around with it without any problem. Interesting, right? And it saves so much of time as well. Okay, now also another thing, if you want to have a look at where exactly your variables are stored, and you, because there will be so many instances where you will be working with different types of variables, right? So if you want to have a look at all the variables that you are working with inside your collection, what you can do is you can quickly come to your collection. In this case, it is Postman Library API v2. Click on that and you will see the list. You will see the section that says variables. Click on that and you will see the option that says the list, that basically lists all the variables that are active in the current collection. Now, if you will also notice that there are two different columns inside the, inside the variable section. One is your initial value and one is the current value. Now, when we talk about the initial value, which it is basically set when someone forks or import your collection. So for example, if you share your collection with others, they will be able to see this value. That is the initial value. So please remember that you don't put any of your secrets over here, right? Otherwise, you might end up getting in trouble. Now, talking about the current value basically, so Postman always resolves the variable to this particular value. So by default, whenever you are adding any variable value, it will by default be stored as the current value. For example, because, and why exactly this is, because this is going to be local to your Postman account and not public. So it is very, it is recommended and good to keep your secrets like API keys and other important things, or other, like other secrets inside this column only, right? And do not include them in the initial column. Okay, now that we have done that, let's quickly and head back to the Postman Academy and start with our next lesson. And that is understanding the query parameters. Okay, now before I actually talk about query parameters, I would actually like to perform the task, that is, search books by genre, so that you can understand the syntax in a better way, right? Because of course you can actually go through the entire content over here and try to understand what exactly what exactly are query parameters, and try it yourself as well. But in this case, I would really love to, like quickly go to this task and then understand what exactly does the query parameter do. So let's come to this task, that is search books by genre. And now what we are going to do is we are going to select, or we are basically going to filter out the book results that is to only show us the fiction books, right? So now what we will do is we are basically going to add another request to our collection. And in that case, what we can do is, so in like meanwhile, I can also show you one important feature of one more feature of, or one more feature of Postman that you can actually use, and it is very handy. That is to duplicate a request. So you have the option to duplicate a request, and what it does is you don't have to all your, like all your request URLs and everything will be saved. So you don't actually have to, like again and again type in that. By that, coming, like talking of that, it reminds me of another important thing, and that is saving your requests. So after you have successfully performed your request, right? You have executed that successfully. Please don't forget to save your request, because in case the internet suddenly decides to say bye bye to you and like goes away, and then you are in this situation that all your progress is not saved, it is very disappointing, right? So please make sure that you actually save all the requests after you are executing them, right? So after that, now let's go ahead and try out the duplicate feature, right? And see how we can actually use that. And it is so handy to work around with different types of requests inside the same collection. Let's quickly click on duplicate. And the moment you see that, you see now there is a copy. There is one more copy that is created of your, of our previous request, and that is get books copy. Now we are going to name it as Get Fiction Books because that's what is going to be our next, that is what exactly our next task is, right? That is to filter out the books by genre, and the genre is fiction. So let's quickly come here and let's head back to the Postman Academy and see what are we going to do. Now, here you will see that inside this, we see the tab that says params, right? So here you will see the params and there is query parameter. So now what we're going to do is we are basically going to filter out the library catalog on the basis of the filter that is genre is equal to fiction. So let's come over here and mention genre. If you want to avoid all the any mistake, you can also just head back to the Postman Academy, just copy the key and the value here, and you will be good to go. So let's come over here. Let me add the value that is fiction, and I'm done. Now, did you observe something? Something changed in this request section. I'm sure you would have noticed till now, and that is the request URL changed significantly. And that is after the books, there is a question mark added, and then it is followed by genre is equal to fiction. And now is the time to understand what exactly is a query parameter. So query parameter, whenever we are actually talking about the query parameter, let's talk about the syntax first, right? So whenever we are performing or whenever we basically want to query something or perform a filter, right? Basically, query parameters are added at the end of the path. And the query parameters basically start with a question mark and they are followed by the key value pair. So as you can see over here in this case that we have question mark, then we have genre, and then it is equal to the value that is fiction, right? Easy. Now, let's come here and let's quickly go back. Like again, I hope you all have already done this, right? So let's quickly resume this and now head back to the Postman Academy and see the next step. So we already have done that. And yes, that was about it. Now, I hope you have learned about what exactly are query parameters. If you want to, we can also quickly go back to the query parameters lesson and learn about the syntaxing a little bit in more detail. For example, as we talked a little bit about the syntax, right? Some APIs allow you to refine your request further with key value pairs that is called as query parameters. Now, another thing is if you want to add multiple query parameters, right? For example, so that the next task, if you will see, is going to be about querying multiple query parameters, right? Now, in that case, what does the syntax look like? So if there are multiple query parameters that we are going to run or that we are basically going to execute, they will be separated by an ampersand, or you can say the and sign, right? So in this case, if you will see, this is get HTTPS, and then there is an API, and then there is this, right? Now here, if you will see, there are two different key value pairs. One is the query orientation is equal to landscape, and the next one is the size that is equal to 500 into 400. So you can see that there are two query parameters here, and they both are separated by an and sign or an ampersand, right? Okay, let's try that out into action and by going ahead with the task that is multiple query parameters. So let's come over here and let's start with that. Okay, now in this case, our task is going to be that in the same request, okay, so we have to be in the same request that is get fiction books, and inside that we have to add one more query parameter. Let's add that, right? But first, see what exactly is going to be our key and value. So the key is going to be checked out. Okay, let's add that here. And the value is going to be false. Okay, so we want to see all the books that are not yet checked out from the library. Okay, let's do that. Did you see and did you notice the difference? Now, automatically, the param section and the request URL has been updated and has been changed from genre is equal to function to genre is equal to function and checked out is equal to false. Let's send this and let's see what do we get. And yes, we get this. So if you will see over here, all the books that we are receiving in the response section are of the genre fiction, right? As you can see here. And all the books that we have received are the ones that are currently in the library and they are not yet checked out. That means they are available for the visitors to use and to read, right? So you can see over here that all these books are basically not yet checked out. Awesome. How interesting, right? So we were able to implement one query parameter, and we were able to see the results of, like how exactly we can use query parameter for, for filtering out one or individual factors. And now we were able to query multiple, like we were basically able to add multiple query parameters. Okay. Now let's talk about the next thing, that is path variable. Now, similar to what we saw right now, right? There is another way of accessing or like of passing request data to an API, and that is via path variables. So let's understand a little bit about what exactly path variables are and how we can actually use them and how exactly they are different from query parameters, because they both do the same thing, but how they do it differently. So for that, and to understand that, we have to quickly look at the path variable syntax. Now, in this case, what we are doing is we are basically trying to access a GitHub user, right? By providing a username. And what does the path variable syntax look like in that case? So here you can see api.github.com/users/username. So what we are doing is there is no complexities in terms of adding a question mark or anything. This is going to be directly followed by the username. So if you want to access my GitHub, like my GitHub account, that will look like github.com, like the protocol, the host and the path, and then followed directly by my username, right? By my GitHub username. Now, next thing is, okay, and of course, this one in this case, they are showing that, they are fetching the details of Postman Labs, which is the Postman Labs official GitHub account. So we are fetching the data about this user. Now, if you have multiple path variables in a single request, such as this endpoint for getting users GitHub code repository, right? So what we are going to do in that case, we are going to come to api.com GitHub/repos, the owner name / the repo name. So basically there is no, there is just like, we are going to, we are basically going to add dynamic values over here, right? We are not going to, like we are not going to, work a lot with, like static values. We are basically currently dealing and working with the dynamic values. For now, here, if you will see, again, there is another example. And yes, interestingly, I was actually going to talk about that. And that is path versus query parameters. So just to understand that in better, because they both perform the same task, how they are actually different. So here, if you will see the path variable, right? The syntax of a generic path variable looks like this, whereas the syntax of a generic query parameter looks something like this. Okay, we already have seen that, and we will be seeing it into the action for the path variable as well in the next task. Now, for the path variable, it is directly located after a slash in the path. We just observed that on to the different syntax examples that we saw, right? And it can be anywhere on the path. Okay. Now, for the query parameters, that's not the case. It is only located at the end of the path. That is right after the question mark. So that's the sign that whether we are actually going to use query parameter or path variable, right? Now, it accepts dynamic values as I was talking about, right? So when we are working with path variables, we talk about the dynamic values, right? But because it actually accepts the dynamic values. And when we talk about query parameters, it accepts defined query keys with potential dynamic values. So we have defined query keys, right? So key remains the same, and then we can have dynamic values, right? So it could be like, it could change to like one book and then another book and another book. But yes, there is a defined query key which is already linked to that, right? That which is basically linked to that value section. Okay. Now, Next one is often used as IDs or entity names, which makes sense, right? Because that's how because these are really dynamic and they can easily and we can easily use path variables in these scenarios. And for the query parameters, it is often used for options and filters because again, key remains the same and then there are other options which you can actually choose from on the basis of what is your current use case, right? Okay. Now, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about when to use path variable. Very important. Now, always and always read the API documentation in order to get the idea, like do not guess, do not do the guesswork. If you know there is a requirement of using a path variable or path parameter, the documentation will be mentioning that explicitly. Okay, so please always refer to the documentation, right? And all and then you know like then choose it accordingly. There is also a side note available with like a side note written here that we have written for you, which is important. That is some API documentation use colon syntax to represent a wildcard in the path, like slash users slash colon username. Now, of course, while people also use curly braces, right, for like for basically adding the path like path parameter, but also know that we can also use colon and a lot of documentation basically use the colon syntax, and we will also be doing that in our next task to represent the path parameter. Okay. Now, let's go ahead with this to our next task before we actually head to the next quiz of this particular module, and that is to get a book by ID. Okay. Now, for this particular request, we are basically going to fetch the book based on the ID, and that is going to be so here as it says, someone keeps visiting the library daily, asking whether fictions by George Louis Borges is available or not. George Louis Borges is available or not. Now, when we are fetching the details, right? When we are fetching the details and when we are requesting, we always see that there is an ID which is available and which is linked to each and every book. So similarly, in this case, the visitor is specifically interested in the book that has the ID defined as this, right? So of course, we will have to perform the query accordingly. And let's do that. And let's see what exactly we will be doing. So now what we're going to do is we are basically going to add a new request. So let's quickly come here and click on add a new request. So in the last case, we duplicated it. And if you want to, in general, create or add a new request, how you will do that? You will just click on these three dots and then click on the very first section or the very first option that says add request. So let's do that. And let's name this as instructed. That is get book by ID, right? Now, once we have created our new request, let's quickly add our request URL and the method set to get so that our request section looks as it should be. So let's quickly come over here and you will realize the moment you come over here, you will actually already see this option. So I'm just going to quickly choose that. And then we have our request section all set for the use. Okay. Now, if you will see, that is the endpoint, right? So again, one more thing here, we have added the book section, right? We have added the URL till books. Now, because we want to search for a specific ID and that mentions and that basically reminds us of using our path parameter or path variable, right? So what was the syntax? The syntax was, well, of course, followed by a slash, and then we are going to add a colon and then ID. And that's what our request URL is going to look like. If you want to cross-check, quickly go back onto the Postman Academy and check that this is how your Postman, the request URL is looking like. That is base URL slash book slash ID. Once again, why? Because we are currently in the task where that basically asks us to create or get book by ID. And when we talk about ID, we want to now use the path variables, right? And if you noticed it already, the moment I add a colon and then, mention, if we will actually, like do that again, the moment I add colon and then, add the key, right? The key, the value of the key that is ID, you will see a new a new section inside the params open up, that is path variables. So now what we're going to do is we are quickly going to copy and paste the value which we are currently interested in. And that is the ID number this, right? So let's come over here and let's add the value as mentioned and as we want to. And now let's hit send. Yes. Okay. Yes. So now what we're going to do is we are quickly going to save this request. Again, very important because you don't want to miss out and lose out on your progress. If something happens with your internet or your laptop gets discharged. So let's save this and let's click on send. And yes, we received the 200. Okay. But more than that, what we are interested in is to receive to check whether we have received the correct response in the response section or not. And yes, we have received the correct response. And now we can see the details of this particular book that has this ID. And now we can help our visitor on the basis of this information to help them know about this book, and then whatever they want, like, if they want to issue this book, then basically issue them this book, right? Because now you can see that this particular book is not yet checked out. Okay. Now, let's go back and now let's see. One more thing here is that you can actually come over here and click on this section that is console and see all your requests live, right? Whatever is happening inside your request, you can actually just quickly come over to the, you can basically always open up the Postman console that is present here in the left side, and all the requests that you are making and all the responses as well are logged into the Postman console, right? So you can basically see over here the details of all our recent, the last one as well, right? The last request that we made, all the values are stored and logged perfectly over here. Okay, awesome. Now let's go back and head to the quiz. And the quiz is about query versus path parameters. So please pause this video and go ahead and attempt. There are 3 questions. Please attempt all the 3. And then we will start with the next module after checking the answers. Awesome. Let's get started. Let's quickly click on the quiz. Let's take this again and start the quiz. The first question is, what type of parameter is :ID below? Yes, we know that already. We just discussed this, right? That is going to be path parameter because as the syntax suggests, it is colon. So yes, it is going to be the path parameter. Next question. How many query parameters are present in this request URL? Let's quickly count them. So query parameter 1, and then we have search is equal to both. So let's quickly click on 2 and let's click on next. The next question is, how many path parameters are in this documented endpoint? Okay, interesting. So this is this. And yes, I don't find any path parameter here. Do you? Let's choose 0 and let's see. And yes, we passed the quiz with flying colors. So yes, now we can head to the next module, that is sending data with post. And yes, it's going to be fun because now we are going to, till now we have worked with one request method, that is get method. And now we are actually going to talk about post method and add a new data or add a new book onto the existing server. So let's do that. Now, after we come over here, let's quickly understand. So here you can see that, this particular lesson talks a little bit about what exactly is body and how exactly we add the data into the post request, via the post request with the help of adjacent body, right? So here if you will see, you will need to send a body data with requests whenever you need to add or update a structured data. So yes, in any case, when you are required to update a data, add the data to the existing server, right? You will be using the body, right? Because the request that you're sending has to have a body in order for the server to actually execute that process and basically add that into the server, right? So as it mentions that typically you will be using body data with put, post, and patch requests. So yes, whenever you are working around with these three request methods, that is put, post, and patch, you will be surely working with body. Okay. Now, the body tab in the Postman enables you to specify the data you need to send a request, and you can send different types of body data to suit your API. So here, if you will come to the body section, you will see that there are different options in which you can actually add your data. For our scenario, as you can see that all our data is present in JSON, right? So we are going to add the data accordingly and in JSON, right? So for example, if we want to add the data as JSON, what we are going to do? We are basically going to choose raw, okay? And the moment you click on raw, you will see this drop down that says JSON, right? So you still have, while you choose raw, you will have option to select from all of these. And in this case, as we are going to work with JSON, because that's how our that's how our library catalog is stored in that structure. So we will be using JSON, right? Now, let's go back and see what exactly we are going to do in this particular task. So now what we are going to do is we are basically going to create a new request that is add book. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's quickly click on request, add request, and that is add book, and done. Now let's quickly add the book here, remove this and keep it till here, unless it is instructed something else. Yes. So we have to set the request method to post and the request URL to base URL slash post. And that's what we have done. I'll remove the slash. If you have added, please remove that as well. So our request URL should look like this, that is base URL slash post. That's it. Okay. Now what we want to do? We basically want to change the request method to post, right? Because that's what we're going to do. We are going to add a book. That means that we are going to be using the post method in this case, right? So now what we will do is we are going to, after that, we are going to come to the section that is body, choose raw, JSON, and now add the structure or add the required data structure to add onto the server. So to help us better, we actually already have the details of a book added over here, which we can actually refer to and then add it inside the body section. So you can see over here, we have added the JSON as required and as stored in our data or in the server, right? And that is the title, author, genre, and year published. Okay, let's save this and let's click on send. Oh, and what did we see? We received a 401 unauthorized. And why did we do that? Let's quickly see the error message. The error message says invalid or missing credentials. Make sure you add API key to the request headers with a valid value. And that's when we come to our next important point that we need to understand and we need to learn, and that is authorization. Now just imagine you doing a project which is, and on that anyone can come and add anything that they want, like anything that they want. We don't know about them, we don't know about the account user, we have not given them any access particularly, and now anyone around the world is coming and they are just adding data, updating the data onto your server. Does that look correct? And that is, of course, like that means, like, Houston, we have a problem case, right? So just to make the scenario better and help us consume and build APIs in a better way, it is so much important that we always we always focus on the authorization aspect, right? So let's quickly go back to the Postman Academy and check what did we do wrong and how to make that correct. Okay, so for that, we are going to talk about header. Now, In this case, what we are going to do is we are basically some APIs, right? Like some APIs require authorization, that is auth, okay? Because of course, there are some endpoints that need some permission or required, or required access in order to permit or in order to basically execute a request, right? Now, similarly, you can definitely have a quick look at the content of this lesson. For now, what we're going to do is we are basically going to stick to understanding this last part of the authorization that says that there are multiple methods of authorizing a request. So, starting off with, there are few commonly known, like commonly known authorizing methods. That is basic auth, where you are using a username and password. Next one is auth, auth, OAuth, which basically is delegation authorization. Third one is API keys, which we are basically going to use into this request or into our case, and we are basically going to, you know, get the secret strings registered to a developer from an API portal, and that's what we are going to do. So in this case, we are going to quickly go back and get an API key. Okay. So how we will do that? We will come to the header section, and inside the headers, we will be adding our key value. So as you can see in the key value, we have to add the header name as API key. Let's quickly add that. And then the value will be Postman rules. Okay. So this is how we are basically adding authorization to our request, right? Okay. So I hope you all have done it till here, right? We all have basically added the header name and the header value. Just know that Postman Library API v2 is using very light protection and does not require you to register for an API key. Okay. So we simply have to just, go to the header section, and then you have to mention the header name and the value. On that note, let's talk a little bit about what exactly are headers. Now, header basically is how we can basically add metadata about our request, right? For example, an authorization information, or to specify the data type that we want to receive in a response, right? Now, this is definitely different, from the actual payload data that we send to the body of a request, such as a new book information, right? Now, you can actually, if you will actually go back, if we will, like go back to our academy, you will see that you can think of headers like the outside of an envelope when you send a letter. The envelope has information about delivering the letter, like proof that you have paid for the postage. The actual data, that is payload, is the letter that is inside the envelope. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that also helps you to understand headers in a different, in a much better way. Okay. Now let's go ahead and into the same request. We already have done this, right? Add the key value. We have added the value as well. And now we are going to save this and let's hit send. So let's save this and click on send. And hopefully we should be able to get the successful response. And yes, we have received that. So now we have been successful in adding a new book onto the library, inside the library, and that is this particular book, and that is verified by seeing the status code 201 created. That tells us that yes, the book that you request, that basically, the request that we requested for was successfully executed. Awesome. We have been able to done this, and that's so good. Now, let's go back. Let's go ahead and you go with our next task, that is use Postman auth instead. Now, there is one problem that is actually, if you didn't notice already, but are we actually going to add authorization to each and every request? Does that sound like like a standard protocol, or something which is actually going to be very much scalable? No, right? So we need to find a way where we can actually, you know, add the authorization on a higher level, or in this case, the collection level, so that we don't have to add the authorization again and again for each and every request, right? Because that will be so time consuming, as well as it doesn't make much sense when you are actually trying to work on big projects, right? Now, For that, what we are going to do is we are basically going to delete this, right? The one that we just did, save it. And now let's head to adding or using Postman auth. How we'll do that? Let's see that. So for using Postman auth, what we're going to do is we are basically going to come to the collection. And once we come to collection, we will see the authorization section, right? Let's click on that. Now, once you click on the authorization and you will click on this drop down, as of now, you see that there is no auth. And here you will see a lot of options which are present here. And as we discussed already that we are going to stick to API key authorization method. So we will be going ahead by selecting or choosing API key from all the mentioned options that are present inside this auth type, right? Now, let's go back and copy the key value as instructed in the Postman Academy. Okay, let's come over here. And now let's add this. So we are going to add the same API key and the value. So let's quickly add that. I have added the API key here. Let's make sure that there are no white spaces so that we don't, we don't get into any trouble. Let's quickly add the value and yes, we are done. Add to header, that's it. And now we are able to save this. And guess what? We have been able to save, we have been basically able to add the authorization on collection level. That means now we don't have to, we don't basically have to again and again add authorization for each and every request. Do you want to try that? Let's do that. Okay. Let's come to this particular request and now go to the body and let's add a new book. So let me change this book as I'll just change this book to something else, or let's say for now I'll just add fresh. Okay, and now I'll click on save and I'll click on send. And yes, after adding the authorization on collection level, we can see that there is new book created, right? And we were successfully able to implement that without any problem. And yes, that is it about this task. Awesome. Okay, now let's go ahead and go to the quiz section of this module, that is sending data with Postman. And let's understand what exactly is in that. So yes, please pause this video once again, and perform, attempt all the two questions, and then we will go ahead with the next module after checking the answers. Awesome. Okay, let's quickly check the questions, and I hope that you all have, been able to get the answers correctly, right? But let's quickly check it for now and choose the correct answer. What could happen if you don't include authorization as known as auth to your API? Select all answers that apply. Your computer can explode. Oh my God, that is like terrible. Okay. Next option is your API will have completely open endpoints that anyone can access publicly. Yes, and that is such a big threat, that is such a threatful statement in itself, right? Unauthorized people will be able to access data that they should not see. Yes. Bots would be able to flood an API with thousands of calls per second and shut it down. Absolutely. And forget about all of that. The bill that you will receive the next day is going to blow your mind. Okay. Now, let's click on next question and let's see the next question. You send this request to Postman and get this response code 401. What is the error here? Everything seems right over here. So we should be typically receiving 201, right? When we are adding this with a post request. But if that is not the case, that means the path changed, there is not enough storage, there are no issues, the request needs authorization. Yes. If we have added everything correctly, if this is the body, then we should be able to, the only case in which we'll get the error is going to be when the request needs the authorization and we have not added that. And yes, we got it correctly. Awesome. Let's go ahead and let's continue with variables. So I know we already have talked and we already have covered good amount of variables in the very start, but we are actually going to talk about variables a little bit more into this particular lesson because there is more to it, of course. Now, just to revise, yes, Postman allows you to save values as variables so that you can dry, that is reuse values to keep your work dry. That means don't repeat yourself. Now, hide sensitive values like API keys from being shared publicly. Yes, because we talked about initial value, current value, and we understood the importance of keeping, understood the importance of both of them and what exactly they both do, right? Now, in this section, we are actually focused on learning about the variable scopes, right? So, for example, here if you will see, this is a diagram which starts from the narrowest rectangle and expands to the broadest rectangle, right? And throughout this diagram you see the different scopes of the variables, starting from local variables to the postman variable, right? Now, apart from all of that, we see that there are multiple type of variables, that is local variables, data variables, environment variables, collection variables, global variables, and then postman level and then we have postman, right? Like inside postman we have all of these variables. So again, postman is not a postman, like postman is just like a, like just to help you understand that inside postman there are different types of scopes, right? So starting from local to global. Okay, now, important thing here to understand is that if a variable, let's read that carefully because it is very important. It will definitely come handy when you are, like working on bigger projects, right? Because this might be easy because it is a beginner friendly course. But in other cases, you definitely need to learn and you need to be aware about the different types of scopes in variables. So if a variable with the same name is declared in two different scopes, the value stored in the variable with narrowest scope will be used. The simplest example is mentioned over here. That is, if there is a global variable name, username, right? So if we have a global variable that is username, and then we have a local variable that is named as same, the username, right? So they both have the same, they both are named like they both are named as username, right? Now, if you are running or if you are executing, if you are executing this variable using this variable, the local value will be used when the request runs. So by default, the narrowest scope will be used when you are actually, when you are actually, like working with the variables, right? So let's go ahead and now talk about the next step, that is going to be setting variables programmatically. And yes, it is going to be fun because a lot of us actually don't like to don't like to add things manually, right? We always feel like there should be one simple command that we can run and then we can actually execute that and see the magic happen. But till this time what we were doing is we were actually adding the variables manually, right? By manually selecting the value and then setting that as a variable based on the scope and everything, right? Now, what we are going to do is we are actually going to first learn about scripting a little bit because that is important in order to understand how we can actually add a variable using the PM object. Okay, so if you will basically come to your script section in the request, right? In the requests. So now you will see that there are two things. One is your pre-request and one is your post response. So there is a pre-request script and then there is one post-response script. Pre-request script basically means that is going to be used or the event which actually happens right before or immediately before the request is sent. And then for the response is basically the event happens when it is actually when it is immediately sent after the response comes back. Okay. Now, in this particular, if you will actually go back to Postman Academy, you will see that in this particular lesson, we will be focusing on writing scripts in the post response tab. Okay. Now, talking of that, let's talk about our PM object or Postman object. Now, Postman has a helper object named as PM right? That actually gives you access to data about your Postman environment, requests, responses, variables, and the other testing utilities. Now, just to help you get started with what exactly you can do and how exactly simply you can use the commands, there are some simple there are some simple examples mentioned over here. For example, the very first example is pm.response.json. That is just to access a JSON response body from an API. So you can actually just write in the script section pm.response.json and you will be able to access the JSON response body. Next one is pm.collectionVariables.get base URL. Now here you can actually see that you can programmatically get the value of collection variables. In this case, it says that we have base URL with the help of this simple command, right? That is pm.collectionVariables.get base URL. Now, after that, we can also, like we did the getting collection variables option, we also have the option to setting them up, right? So we can also set the variables. And how we'll do that? We will be doing that using the set, right? Using the set method. So as you will see, for setting the variables, right? For setting the variables, what we can do is we can actually use this command that says pm.collectionVariables.set followed by in the bracket the variable name and the variable value. So if you want to store the base URL in the variable name, that will be stored as as base URL, and then we will have my variable value that will be stored as the value of the URL, right? That is actually stored as the variable base URL. As you can see in this example, it says pm.collectionVariables.set. In the bracket, it says my where, comma, foo. That means this is the variable name and this is the variable value. Awesome. Looks like we are ready to start with our very first scripting, and let's see how it goes. Okay, let's come here. And before you do that, I am going to give you a couple of minutes to all those, if you are someone who is new to JavaScript, please don't worry, because there are some very there are some very basic basics of the basic syntax which are actually mentioned over here, which will help you to get comfortable with JavaScript, so that you can actually write the scripting, you can do the scripting in a much more confident way, right? So I'll give you a couple of minutes so that you can actually have a look at this, and then we will go ahead with our task. Okay, I hope you all have been able to do this and you all were able to get comfortable with some basics of JavaScript, right? That is console.log, how you can actually do that, getting comfortable with the comments, the single line comment, the multiple line comment, and all of that. And now you're hopefully set for our next task, that is going to be our first script. So let's quickly come back here and let's go ahead and see the first step that we're going to do. In your add a book request, change the book data in your body to a new book you like. Okay, let's do that. Let's come to body. And now I'm actually going to think about my last book that I read, and that was The Leader Who Had No Title. An amazing book. I don't know why I'm suggesting books, but yes, that is, if you are someone who is really into, understanding the ethics of leadership, like what exactly like and like yeah, some basic ethics of leadership, and some awesome inspiring stories that are going to make you feel that are basically going to make your heart feel full. You definitely, and of course at the same time, inspire you a lot to become a better leader, to become a better person professionally. It's a very good book, The Leader Who Had No Title. And the author is Robin Sharma. And because I read this book very recently, so I know the publishing date as well, that like publishing year as well. And the genre will be under business. Okay. Now you can see I have added a new book. Please go ahead and add your favorite book or any book that you like or you have ever read, right? And you can add that, you can add here, right? So please add a fresh book over here. And now once we have done that, we are going to come under scripting section. And now what we're going to do is we are basically going to come to post response and let's see what exactly is going to be our script. So inside the script editor, add this JavaScript code to log the JSON response from the API. So again, the one that we learned right now, right? We just learned about console.log. So that's what we are going to do right now. And that is going to be console.log pm.response.json. And now let's hit save and let's send and let's see what do we get. So yes, we see that we have been able to create a new book, that is the leader who had no title. And now let's head to the console page. And what do you see? If you will see here, you will be able to see that you can actually look at the entire log of the last request that we made and whatever it contains, right? Interesting. Okay, let's cancel this and now let's come back. So yes, we were successful in writing our, first script. And yes, congratulations, you did that. Now, after that, what we are going to do is we are going to quickly go ahead to the next task, that is grab the new book ID. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, again, we are going to do that programmatically, right? So now we are going to bring into the use case the syntaxes that we learned recently, that was get variables and set variables, right? So let's bring them to our use case. Okay. Now, again, we are going to work inside the same request, that is add a book. And now we are going to change the book's details to add a new book. Okay. So now what we'll do, we are going to come over here and I'm just going to write here, let's say, new, right? I'll just mention here, new. Okay. And now let's come under script section. And now let's remove this. And now we will be getting and setting the variables as we want to. So first, let's copy this, right? Let me add this here and then I'll explain what exactly is it doing. It is a very simple, it is a very simple command. Like there is not a lot of rocket science into it if you actually look into that and compare it with the basics that we just learned, like the basic syntax that we just learned about JavaScript and, setting and getting variables. Okay. So here, if you will see, the very first thing that we are doing is we are adding const ID. Okay. Const ID, I think you already know, like we already saw that, in JavaScript, we can either, we can basically use let and we can use const based on our case scenario. And here we are using the const ID, right? The const variable. Now, after that, after defining this, we are going to say const ID is equal to pm.response.json.id. Okay, which basically means that we are going to save the ID value from the response to a variable that is named as ID. Okay. After that, once we have done this, we are going to come to the next line of code, that is pm.collectionVariables.set ID, ID. Now, after saving this value of ID, what we are doing is we are basically going to save this ID as a collection variable and name it as ID. Okay. So we will be doing that using pm.collectionVariables.set and ID, ID. Okay. Now, after that, we have done this. Let's quickly click on save it and then let's send. And yes, we have been able to successfully add our new book. At the same time, we have been also able to add the script to it, right? So now you can see we have added that. We were able to, send the request. And then you can see what exactly happens when we receive the 201 response for the newly created book. The test script will run and save this book's ID as a collection variable automatically. You want to check that? Let's see. So we already have run this. It already says that it is created. Now let's check if it is actually true and we have this variable saved or not. So let's come to variables. And yes, we have this variable called as ID saved, and the current value is updated as the value of this particular book. And that is this, right? Awesome. We were able to actually add a book, and we were also able to, save this, save the variable and, programmatically, which is awesome. And yeah, let's go ahead. And in this way, we have actually reached the halfway test. That is amazing. I mean, you should actually take a moment to applaud and to basically give a good round of applause for yourself that you have been able to, reach here till the halfway test. And I hope that you will complete the remaining part as well, and you get the you get the certificate, right? Okay. Now, please, as it is going to be a halfway test, as it mentioned, so please follow all the steps very carefully as you all are already following, right? So let's quickly go ahead and do that. Now, for that, what we're going to do is we are basically going to fork a collection, that is the collection test, okay? So let's come over here. As you see here that we have this collection test, we have this test collection, and we are going to create a fork of it. So let's click on this, okay? Once you will click on collection test, you will automatically see the option that says fork. So let's click on fork. Keep the name as that. If you want to change it, please do that. But yes, I'm going to keep that as it is. For the workspace, please choose the workspace as Postman API Fundamental Student Expert, the one that you have created. Okay. And then click on fork collection. So I hope you all have done till here and you have followed along till here. That is starting off with clicking on this particular link, right? After you click on this particular link, you go to collection test. Once you click on collection test, you see this option that says forking this collection. Then after forking this collections, you add all the details and then click on fork collection. And once you do that, what you will see is inside the workspace that you created in the start of this course now contains two different collections. One is the one that we were actually currently working on, that is Postman Library API v2, which contains all the requests that we have executed till now. And the second one that we just executed or that we just forked is the collection test, right? Which contains three things. One is halfway check, the final check, and the submit. So yes, now what we are going to do is we are basically on the halfway check, and let's see what exactly are the next steps. Okay. So we have done it till here. We have done it till this part. And now the next step is going to be get the API link for your entire API v2 collection. So to get the link again, please see it carefully before you actually start doing it in your Postman account. Come here, click on these three dots, click on share. We are going to use the method that is share via API for sharing our API collection, And in that, click on generate new key and copy this. And once you have copied that, keep it copied and come to the halfway check. Again, I'm going to repeat so that you can actually follow along and you do the steps correctly. You come to Postman Library API v2, click on these three dots, click on share via API, choose this, create a new, you will see the option of generating a new code. So create a new code and then you copy that. Okay. And once you have done that, what we're going to do, we are going to come to the halfway check request. So let's come over here. And here, if you will see, as of now, the submission variable is not yet, has no value currently, right? So we have to enter the value. And for that, don't do anything over here, okay? Come to collection test on the collection level, come to variables, and you will automatically see a variable that is added over here that says submission, right? Now we are going to add the value of, or basically our API key, right, that we just copied, and we are going to add it onto both the initial value and the current value. Remember, Postman automatically by default say, like basically refers to and is able to see the current value, right? So let's add it onto both the initial value and the current value. Let's save this. And now is the final time to check and see the progress that we have made till now. So now you can see that it is no more unresolved. Now this particular variable is resolved and it has a value, right? And now what we're going to do is we are basically going to hit send. And yes, we have done that. Now, once you do that, you will of course receive a response and a JSON and all of that. But currently, we are interested in this. That is the test results. And as you can see, there are 16 tests, right, that you need to pass. And I have received 15. Not bad, actually. But let's see what we have done. And that also, gives me, that will also give you an idea to how to, to give you an idea to check how exactly you can debug or solve the errors that you're getting, right? Some of you might have received 14, 12, 10, 7, 6, right? Don't worry, right? Don't worry. We are actually, you can actually easily solve that. So don't, feel demotivated after seeing those single digit or, like not full numbers, right? Now, let's, for example, right, let's check my error. So I'm receiving get fiction books. So I know that there is something to do with the request folder, the request that is get fiction books. And it says cannot read properties of undefined reading sum. Okay, let me come to get fiction books and see what do we have here. What do we have here? Okay, let's see what's the error. And when I'm actually seeing the get fiction books request, it looks that I have missed out on something. So here, I don't know why, but I think that I might have not saved this request. That's why I'm receiving this error. But yeah, we are doing it together and we are doing it live. So let's do that together. So in case, of course, I'm hoping that you were like taking the notes of saving your request seriously. But what if you will actually, let's quickly go back again and see the halfway check and see what exactly is the error. It says cannot read properties of undefined reading sum. Now let's remove this part, but if I will actually see this section itself, right? So it tells that I have to check for the query parameters. And when I come over here on the get fiction books and I check the query parameter, I don't have my query parameters saved here. So yeah, I must have not saved it previously. So what I'm going to do now is I'm quickly going to add the query parameters, right? So meanwhile, if you are facing any, if you have received any, any error in your test results, please try to debug it on your own because it will be very helpful for you to, carry on and, like take care of the miscellaneous and handle the miscellaneous cases by yourself easily and smoothly, right? So let's go ahead and quickly add that. So here, as I remember, because of course I have done this task so many times. So I definitely know that here the genre is going to be fiction. And yes, this is how our URL is looking like right now. And after that, we performed the checked out as false as well, right? So we performed both of these tasks. That is, the very first one was, performing a single query parameter and then performing multiple query parameter. We performed both of them inside the same request. So I'm going to quickly add first, or let's, like try to save this, right? And let's try to hit send here, and let's go back to the halfway check and let's try to hit send and see if the error is resolved right now. And no, the error is still there, but now there is another there are more hints that we have opened up, and that is there should be two query parameters. One is genre fiction and checked out is equal to false. And let's do that. So let's again quickly head back to our get fiction books request, add checked out as false, right? So let's quickly copy this. Let's copy it from here. Oh, this is not checked out. This is checked out. And then we have to add false. So let's add it. And fingers crossed, I hope we are able to solve this and we are able to receive the 16 out of 16 on this test. Let's run this. And yes, we received 16 out of 16. So if you are also someone who has got all the tests passed and have received 16 out of 16, you do deserve a very good and big loud round of applause. So yes, please, please pat yourself, right, for that. Now, in case you got any error, what to do, where to reach out, right? Of course, you must be wondering like how exactly, because I'm not just able to get that. I will again suggest the first step should be going back to your requests and checking where exactly, in the test case, what exactly is the error and what exactly you're seeing. Apart from that, if you still feel that there is some miscellaneous problem and you're not able to, everything is right, but still you're getting the error, there is one way you can do that and you can reach out to us for support. The best way, there are a lot of ways to reach out to us, but yes, the best way would be to reach out to us on Discord. Okay, so if you will actually, you will be, you can either directly, scan this QR code on your mobile phone, and then you can, join our Discord server where we have a dedicated, thread which is used, where we have actually added all the commonly asked questions, where you can actually take, from where you can actually take direct help from. Apart from that, you can also tag me in the server. I get a lot of, tags, just telling you in advance. So please be a little bit patient when you are tagging me. Otherwise, yes, please, there is already a dedicated thread there which contains the list of all the commonly asked questions, and we can easily go there and, get the answer. Okay, awesome. Now, I hope you all were able to receive 16 out of 16 in your halfway test. And now let's go back to our Postman Academy and let's proceed with the next step. Okay. Now, let's come here. Let's click on next and let's go ahead. Now, our next task is going to be querying multiple. Oh, this one seems like I'm not here. Yes, I'm here in the halfway test. I might have chosen that for checking. Okay, now we are done with the halfway test right now, and now we are finally going to, and as you can see also here, right, we have tips added to resolve all your errors. Read the test messages as you already mentioned. Please use them as hints to fix your API library v2 collection, and then save the changes and then send your request again. So please remember, whenever you are making any changes, right, you need to compulsorily save your changes so that the saved change is now reflected when you are actually performing the halfway test and when you are sending the request, because otherwise you will again and again keep getting the error because you haven't just saved the request, right? And that's why you will still receive the error. Okay, now you can also refer to our detailed FAQ, which is going to help you for, troubleshooting. So yes, please also feel free to go ahead and have a look at the frequently asked questions, which will actually help you to understand how you can fix some commonly caused errors, right? So this is also a right place. And of course, Discord is there definitely for the support. Okay, now let's go back and let's go ahead and go to our quiz. Oh, finally, now looks like we're on the final quiz. Oh yes, this is going to be the last quiz of this course. Yeah, we are slowly making it there. Okay, take a pause. Please pause this video and go ahead and complete this, and then we will continue with our next module, completing this quiz and the next lessons. I hope you have already completed the quiz and you have got the answers correctly. Now let's see the question. So choose all the answers that apply. Postman allows you to save values as variables so that you can first spend more time reading the API first world. We have to take action. We don't have to, just read. Okay. We also have to take action on top of that. Okay. Next is reuse values to keep your work dry. That is, do not repeat yourself. And yes, that is definitely one thing that is correct. Next one is cool off your computer. Yes, you should timely cool off your computer, but not for this one. Okay, so not for this particular question. Hide sensitive values like API keys from being shared publicly. Definitely. Let's submit this and see if it is correct. And yes, we got it correct. Awesome. Now let's head to the next module and third last module. It sounds better, right? When I see that, yes, third last, second last, and then finally the last one. Okay, let's head to the last module that we have, and that is going to be performing the last two operations out of the entire CRUD operation, that is patch and delete. Okay, so we are going to perform the update and delete CRUD operation, delete operations out of the CRUD operations. Okay, let's click on next and let's start with the next task, that is going to be checking out our book. Okay, so of course, as a librarian, we definitely have to make sure that we are updating the library database via the API to mark the books checked out status from false to true or true to false, right? Definitely that's one of the things that we need to do, right? So in this case, what we're going to do is we are basically quickly going to add a new request that is going to be check out a book. Okay, so let's do that. Let me come here and inside this, let's add a request and name it as add a book. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is already there, right? I'm sorry. Check out a book. Okay. We have added this request. Now let's quickly add the base URL and everything. So we have our base URL / books. Okay. Now, after that, we have to set the URL. Sorry, first we have to set the request method to patch, right? Now, why we are using patch? Because we are going to update a part of the request, not the entire book. Okay, so we are going to update a part of the book that is going to be part of the book, not like part of the book catalog and not a particular book. Okay, so we are going to be using patch request. Now, by coming here, let's quickly change this request method to patch. And here we are going to work with a specific ID, right? Because we want to work with a specific ID. If you will see the case, what we're going to do here is we are basically going to set the request URL to this. So let's quickly do as instructed first before I actually jump on to the conclusions. So let's quickly, before we actually jump onto the conclusion, let's let's make the request URL as instructed. Now, once we are here and we have done this, now we want to set the value of the path variable ID to ID. That is the variable ID, right? So how we will do that? We can do that in two different ways. Now I'm going to do it in this way. So let's see. Oh, what happened? Okay. I made a mistake. That was first you need to add the slash and then the colon. I don't know why I made a mistake, but yes, apologies. And I hope you did not make the same mistake and you know the syntax correctly, right? It's very, it's like night here. I'm making this video at night, so I'm just, let me again drink a sip of water. Yeah. Okay. Let's get started. And now we are going to, as it mentioned, that we are going to save this as ID, right? So let's save this value as ID. And What's next? This will use the value of collection variable named as ID. If you remember, we have a variable that we have already saved, and that is the ID. That is of the book that we have already, that we worked on right into our last request, right? So I hope you remember where exactly this ID is coming from. Okay, now let's come here. And now what we're going to do is we basically want to add a raw JSON body in the body tab to update the checked out property to true. So very simple. Previously, this book was checked out as false. And now what we're going to do is we basically want to update it to checked out is equal to true, right? Because we have issued this book to someone. Let's click on raw JSON. If you remember, this is the step to, add the body, right? That is raw. Then click on JSON. And now quickly add checked out, or I'll better, quickly for time being, I'll just quickly select here and paste it here. Awesome, easy. Okay, let's save this and let's send it. And yes, now what you see is we have received a 200. Okay, that means that yes, we have been successfully able to update the book detail. So as you can see, previously it was checked out as equal to false, and now it is successfully changed to checked out as equal to true. Awesome. We were able to perform this operation as well. And now let's see after our book is updated. Now let's go ahead and do the last step, that is deleting your book. I am hoping you will be able to do this on your own without any problem, because we already have done the CRU of the CRUD, right? And this is like the last part. So I really want you to take some time and like take a couple of minutes, because it won't take more than that if you actually do it. And if you have followed along till here, with all your attention, right? So you should be able to do that within a matter of few seconds or minutes, right? But yes, I'll give you a moment to try this on, try this yourself. And then we will, of course, I will also do it because we have to follow along till the end. So, but yeah, please take a moment to, go ahead and perform this operation and perform this task on your own. Okay, I hope you all were able to do that on your own, because if you were, then yes, that's some good progress that you have made by far. Okay, because you were able to do one task on your own without any help or without any guidance. Now we have, so in this step, for those who were not able to do it, let's do it, right? Let's do it together. So we came here, we are here on this step that says name your new request as delete a book, right? We have done this. And now we have to set the request method to delete, right? Because that's what we're going to do. So let's do that. Now, inside that, let's add base URL / books, right? And I think in still this one as well, we are going to use the delete ID, right? Let's see if that's the same thing. Yes, right? Because we want to delete a book by their ID, right? That's the easiest thing. So of course, we are going to delete the book by the ID because that's its unique identity number. Now, after this, once we have added this here, you will see that the ID value is already updated. So we know that we are going to delete the book that we worked on in the very start when we were working on the add a book request. And now we are going to delete that book finally. Okay. So after we are done till here, right? After we are done till here, let's quickly click on delete. And now let's make sure that we have everything as mentioned. So we have delete, submission, the base URL, books, and the ID, right? So everything seems to be correct. And hopefully we are able to now, sorry, hopefully we can save this request and hit send. And yes, now you can see that there is no content. So now our book was successfully deleted. And now we were able to perform the last step as well. And that was delete a book. So I will just rename this delete a book. Awesome. Okay. And yes, we have finally arrived on the last part. So let's quickly go ahead and check the next module. That is a very short module that talks about generation of code. Okay, that is Postman's code gen feature. Now, if you will look interestingly, right? Let's come here and let's see body, right? Now, this is very simple one. Let's quickly actually come over here. This was simple. Now, yes, we are here, right? So we are here in the body section or the script section, right? Now, if you will look here, you can actually see the code snippet of this particular body, right? Now here you will be able to see that if you will come over here, you can actually view the same thing in different languages. For example, javascript.fetch. Now this is so awesome, right? Because you might be working with different languages, you might be comfortable using different languages, and you might want to fetch details and work into your own environment using that code base, right? So you can, using this particular feature, the code gen feature, you can easily fetch the details or fetch the code base into your preferred language, and then you can work around with that into your own environment. How cool is that, right? That is so interesting. Okay, that is about the Postman's generation code or the code gen feature. Okay, now let's go ahead and now let's go to the next part. That is going to be our final wrapping up part, and that is skill check. Now, pay very much attention to this one because this is going to be like the final set of tasks that you will be performing in order to get yourself certified. Yeah, again, get certified and claim the Postman Student Expert badge. Okay, now the tests, all the skills that we have learned till now are going to basically come into the picture here, because this is going to be like a test for all the things or all the skills that you have learned till now, by far, till this particular lesson, right? Till the last lesson, that is delete your book task. Okay, so let's start. One API call and 6 tasks. And your goal is to pass all the tests. So I hope you all are ready. Okay. The very first task is make the request. Now make a request named skill check. So let's do that. As it mentions, add it under delete a book request in your collection. So let's do that. I also want you to actively work on your Postman account at this moment rather than, actively looking at the screen. Why? Because it is going to be very helpful for you. Because at the end, no one is looking at you, right? You are just in your home sitting, and you definitely want to make sure that, your 2 hours were worth it, right? Because you learned something, and, you learned a new skill, and you will be more confident while you are actually, whenever you use Postman or whenever you're working with APIs next time. So I also want you to actively go on, be on your Postman Academy and follow along these tasks into your own system. And of course, if you are making any mistake, if you feel that there is something which I'm missing, you can definitely come here on the screen and check, and of course, check your progress. Okay, I'm going to go and create a new request under delete the book request, right? As instructed. And I'm going to name it as skill check. Okay, done. Let's see the next thing. The next task here is that we will be using, or we will mimic a request to make the movie theater using the Postman Echo API. Now, Postman Echo API is basically a special API that Postman built that basically allows you to make a request that returns whatever you send. Okay, so whenever if you send a movie name, that will return you back the movie name. Okay, that's it. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are basically going to make your skill check request a post method. Okay, so let's go here and change the request method from get to post. Okay, and now add this endpoint. So we are going to work around with this request URL. So let's quickly add that. And yes, we are here. Now, once you come over here, if you will see, the next task here is going to be, of course, also remember to save this request, right? So that, you don't have the worry of, missing out on the things, right? Or, like, again, suddenly things disappearing from your Postman from this section out of nowhere. Now, the next task is to add a query parameter called movie name. Let's do that. Let's copy that exactly. And let's come here in the query parameter section and add a movie name. Okay. And what we are going to do, we are going to add a favorite movie name. Is it? Yes. So your request should have a movie name parameter with a value set to your favorite movie. Oh my God. I have so many movies that I love. Absolutely. Um, let's Dangal. I'll choose Dangal because I know the actor name as well. So I am very bad at remembering actor names, but this one is good. I know the actor names. That's why. Okay. I've saved because the next task, I mean, you might not be, you might not be able to relate, or you might be wondering what is she saying, but yeah. So we are going to also add the actor's name, and I'm not very good at remembering the actor's name apart from, like for specific movies. So yes, I'm just choosing Dangal because I know, the actor like Amir Khan is actually has made this video, and of course it is the movie, and it is also a very good movie. So yes, let's save this. And what is our next step? Now, the third step is going to be turn your base URL into a variable. Easy, it should be easy. So we are going to take everything till .com, right? And set that as a variable. Okay. Now, what is going to be the base? What is going to be the variable name? The variable name is going to be skill check base URL. Okay, let's do that. Let's add that skill check base URL. Select a scope. Let's check if that is going to be with a collection variable, right? With a collection variable name skill check. Okay. Let's select collection and click on set variable. Awesome. So now you can see that our URL looks like this, skill check base URL / post. And of course, because we have added our movie, so, like movie name followed by the query parameter, right? Okay. Hope everything is correct. By the way, you don't have to be in that much patience that, whether it is correct or not. You can actually see that live on the spot. How? I'll tell you. Okay. So you come to final check, right? And once you will click on send, you will see something like this. So for the halfway check, we had 16 test results, right? Which we had to pass. And for the final check, we have 28 tests that we have to pass. And you can already see that by the steps that we have done, we already have passed 3 tests of skill check that we just performed, right? And now we have the other 3 remaining. So you can also keep a track of what exactly you're doing live after performing the request as instructed, to check that whether you are going on the right track or you are missing out something, whether you should go back and reflect again onto your previous request before you move ahead with your next task, right? So yes, I can see here I have been able to make all the add all the things and all the details as instructed till this particular step. That was to add a variable called as skill check base URL. So let me quickly go back again to my skill check request and see what is my next task. Now, the next task is going to be task 4, that is use API key authorization. Okay, we have done that. So we already know how to do that. But let's read that carefully, okay? Because there is something written in red, like highlighted in red. And of course, that means it is important, right? The movie theater API requires the requests to be authorized. Add an API key of student expert and the value of skill check at the request level using authorization tab. Okay. What is important is request level. Last time, if you remember, we made the authorization on request level, and we figured out that okay, that doesn't make much sense if it is if we are going to perform, we are going to basically work on bigger projects, and that's why, and which contains a lot of like a lot of requests, right? So we change that to collection level auth. In this case, we are strictly mentioned, we are like it is specified that we have to use the request level authorization. So how we'll do that? Let's quickly copy the student expert, first of all, the value, the key, and now come to authorization and come here and mention API key, right? So from the inherit to parent, remove that and choose API key, okay? And write student expert. The value should be skill check, okay? So let's come here and we have added that. Let's save this and let's hit send. Okay. Again, as I already mentioned, you can go back and check if you are making any progress, and you can see I received now I have 26 out of 28. That means just 2 steps away from completing the skill check, right? Okay. Now the next part is going to be add a JSON body with the property actor name. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we are basically going to, your skill check request should be a JSON body with a property called actor name and a value set to any actor from the movie you chose in step 2. You know why I chose the movie now. Of course, not just because the actor name was easy to remember, but also because, yeah, I'm really good at remembering the actor names from specific movies. Okay, now let's come here in the skill check and let's come to body, right? Let's choose raw and JSON. And now let's quickly add the actor name, right? So let's add it here, open with the curly braces, write actor name, and then write Amir Khan. Okay, I hope we have used it correctly, actor name, and yes, Amir Khan. Okay, let's save this and now let's hit send. And okay, now you can see in the response section, it is added our data that we wanted to add right now. We have the movie name added. We have the data actor name added as well. You want to check again? Let's go back to final check and check if we have done this correctly. And yes, we are so close to finally reaching the last step of the skill check, right? Now, let's go ahead and see what exactly is going to be our next task. And that is the last task here. And that is going to be set a variable using a post response script. Okay, let's do that. Hopefully we will be able to do that without any problem, because now we have to write a script and that is going to be post response script, right? Now, let's read the scenario first because that is equally important, right? So let's read that. Let's automatically set the actor name as a collection variable named favorite actor. In the post response scripts tab of the request, write a script to get the actor name from the response body and save the value as a new collection variable called favorite actor. Okay, let's do that. Little bit difficult. This will be a little bit difficult, but yes, we got this. Also, if you don't know already, I'm also happy to share some trick for this task, but because this is instructor led, so that might not work because we have to specify the, we have to use the exact values, we have to use everything. But just a generic hint, right? So whenever you are confused in writing the scripts and you need some help, what you can actually do is you can actually open up postbot. So if you don't know already, Postbot is like Postman's AI agent, right? Which you can actually use for, working around with your API requests while you are actually, working on your, working on your APIs, right? And working on building and consuming your APIs. So as you can see, hi, I'm Postbot, your AI assistant for all things APIs, right? So meanwhile, in generic, if you actually are facing a difficulty in, any of the things that you're doing on Postman, right, you can actually just do a quick query on Postbot and you will be able to see, for example, you can see, you can add test to the request, test for the response, visualize, you can write script and all of that as well, right? So if it was a generic case and you wanted to write a script for this, you could actually just copy it from here to there, here to here, and you will be able to receive the entire script written into your Postman. Actually, you want to try that? Let's actually try that. Okay. So let's come here and let's send this. And you will see it will work, right? And now you will see that we have the script written, right? Based on whatever we actually added there, right? Whatever we mentioned here, and we have everything written. But now you will see that there are some complexities added over here. For example, the pm.test and all of that, which is not required in our case, right? Because we have only learned get and set, and we only want to use the things that we have learned till now. So let's remove this. But again, this is not useful here, but of course, in general, if you want to run anything, if you want to basically get any help in regards to, in regards to anywhere you are stuck at while you're working with Postman, Postbot is your place to go to. Okay, now for like from that, what I exactly got to know, what exactly I remember is that we have done something similar just few requests back, right? So we were actually here on the checkout, right? Yes, on add a book, right? And we added this here. Let's copy this because our script is going to look very much similar, right? Apart from the changes that we need to make, right? So let's continue and make some changes onto the script and make it as required. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here and let's save this. So we want to we want to basically save this response, right? So what we are going to do is let's quickly add constant, for the response, and adding const res is equal to pm.response.json, and then remove the ID because we don't need ID over here, right? Okay. And now the next one is going to be pm.collection variables dot set. And here we have two things, right? We have the favorite actor and the actor name. Okay. So for the actor name basically resides inside this. So if you will actually look into the response section, you will see that actor basically resides under response, then data, and then we have actor name, right? Inside that. So what we'll do is we will quickly come over here and we will write response dot data dot actor, sorry, actor name. Okay. Because again, once again, response, inside the response, we have data, and then inside the data, we have the actor name, right? As you can see, as you can also see in the response section of, response section. Okay. Now, inside this, we know that we have to set that as favorite actor, right? So let's choose that. And yeah, that's it. We did that pretty well and pretty fast. So let's quickly save this and let's see if it is correct or not. So let's quickly come here, send that. And yes, we received 200. Okay. Hopefully, if we will go back, first of all, I'm interested in checking the final check. So let's see if we did it correctly. And yes, we did that. I hope you all were able to do that as well. And yeah, and if you want to check where exactly this is stored, right? If you want to check that, let's quickly come back here and into the variables. Now you see your favorite actor variable is stored as Amir Khan, right? In the current value. Finally, we are at the step now where we have completed the entire skill check, skill check test, right? And now we are going to go to the next step, and we already have completed the entire test results, right? So I hope you all were able to receive 28 out of 28. Of course, that is going to be my wish, and that is going to be my prayer, because you all are so dedicatedly following me till here. So of course, I can't wish anything less than that, right? But in case you did not, as I mentioned already, The answers and the hints are present inside the error messages only, right? So if you have made a mistake, if you receive 25 out of 20, 28, 26, 27, whatever, please just have a look at the error message and try to go back to the same request and make the changes accordingly. Okay. Okay, now, and of course, if if you are still facing any problem, we do have our Discord community there to help you to, and of course, we also have a dedicated thread, as I already mentioned, which actually contains the list of all the commonly asked questions. And yes, we have the skill check errors added here, added there on the thread, all the common skill check errors that people receive and people get commonly, and the troubleshooting hints are added there as well. So you can definitely join the Discord community and go ahead and share about your learnings, sorry, of course you will be sharing about your learnings, but you can also ask the questions in the thread, and you can also tag us and tag me, right? If you have any question regarding the student expert training, and then yes, I would be happy to help you all. Okay, now finally we are almost there, and now we are just going to get and grab our certificate, right? Just a quick recap before we all continue with submitting our Postman collection and claiming our badge. That is the last step. First of all, congratulations. A huge round of applause for all of you that you all have made it till here, right? And yes, throughout this entire course, you have learned so much, right? Starting from what exactly are APIs, what Postman is for, how to build API requests. We performed all the CRUD operations. We learned about the different requests. We learned about the different types of HTTP requests, the responses, and so much more, right? We also talked about how to again, just making sure that and you can revise what all we have learned till now. We learned about how we can actually interpret and work with API responses, how to read the API documentation and fetch what exactly is required. We learned about how to authorize requests to the API by learning that on the request level as well as on the collection level, how to set variables in Postman for efficiency. That was so important, right? Because we learned it twice. First, we learned it manually, and then we also learned it programmatically, right? How to automate processes with scripts in Postman. For all those who don't like to do the manual work, we also learned about the scripting and how exactly we can automate a lot of process using the PM object, right? And then how to generate API call code snippets for your apps using the Postman's code gen feature, where you can easily just, generate the code snippets for your applications via the Postman's code gen feature into your preferred language, right? And yes, now we have completed the entire day at work as a librarian. We started from adding books, removing books, searching for books, and checking out books from the library system. And all of that using the HTTP calls over a network via Postman. How cool that is. Wow. This was really good. Awesome. Now, let's go back. Let's go ahead and now go to the final step, that is about submitting your Postman collection. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Before we do that, important things first. Please make sure that your collection and all the requests that are present in the collection are present in the same exact order, right? For example, get books, get fiction books, get book by ID, add a book, check out a book, delete a book, and skill check. Okay. So you have to make sure that your books are added in this particular format only, so that you are able to submit your request. And of course, because it is instructor led, again, I'm repeating, so that you want to make sure that they should be able to be in a certain way and in a certain form, so that you tick off the list and you tick off all the requirements as instructed, and then you are able to claim the badge. Okay, awesome. Now let's finally, the final step after doing all of that is going to be on the the submit request, right? Let's come to the submit request, and once we are here, we are finally going to perform last single request, and then we are done. So we are going to come here, ensure that the request method is set to post and the request URL is set to this. So let's quickly do that. And I think we already have it, right? So post and then this is the submit, right? Okay, we already have double checked it is correct. Add a raw JSON body to your request from the body tab. Okay, so please copy this as, like exactly as it is. So let's come to body, raw JSON and paste it here. And once you have done that, now we already have set the submission variable. We know that we already have done that in the collection. And now let's save this and send our request. Okay. And yes, status 200 okay. And finally, the congratulations message. The lesson submit your Postman collection is now marked as complete. That means that we have been successfully able to complete all the steps till here without any problem. Of course, we had some problems, we had some hiccups in between, but we made it at the last, right? That's important. Okay. Now, again, if you're stuck, same, please don't feel bad or don't feel disappointed. This definitely is very common. You are definitely prone to get a lot of errors because this is instructor led, and you definitely want to make sure that, you are performing all the required tests based on the instructions that are given to you, right? So you might have missed out something. There might be some white spaces or some like not spelling mistake is very like it is not common, like so there must be like some white spaces when you are adding a values, when you are basically adding value into your variable section, or when you are adding the query parameter and you by default copy the space as well, so that you have to make sure that all of these things are not there. So please check for that before like when you actually receive any error, rather than getting rather than getting disappointed, because this is very beginner friendly, and any mistake that you're making will be very very like tiny, or something that might have something to do with some really small mistake that you can just solve by looking at it once again. Okay, now, let's go ahead, and once you will actually refresh this page, you will be able to see that our next step will be unlocked. So let's quickly refresh this. And yeah, once you have refreshed that, we are able to now head to the next, like the next lesson. And that is our final lesson for claiming our badge. So let's go ahead and do this. Yes, the final step, and we are done. So now what we are going to do is we are going to basically paste the student expert collection JSON link. So let's go ahead and do that, right? Once again, how we will be doing that? Sharing, you will come to the Postman Library API v2 collection, come to sharing via API, and then copy the link. Okay, so let's go ahead, come here, share via API, and copy this and done. Okay. And let's click on claim. Fingers crossed. And yes, we have finally claimed our badge, right? Congratulations. Congratulations to you on receiving your Postman API Fundamental Student Expert badge. I hope you have received it as well. And yes, now what is next? You can actually go ahead, log into your Canvas backpack. If you will actually click over here, you will be, you can actually go to Canvas, which is basically our badging platform, which awards the badges, right? So let's say if you will, I'll just quickly log in and let's choose this and continue. And now you all should be able to you all should be able to see. Yes. Okay. Of course, I'm also here at the very first time. So let's quickly, like I'm also here from this account on the for the first time. And yes, what do you see? You see here, there is a new batch listed, and that is Postman API Fundamental Student Expert. That is awarded to you on this particular date. So yes, let's quickly come here. And yes, a lot of celebrations going on already onto the onto the Canvas badges platform as well. And you can see everything here, all the descriptions if you want to share it, if you want to, you know, if you want to view the public page, whether you want to share it with your recruiters or anyone on, like you want to add it anywhere, onto your resume, onto any section, right? Or just share it with your recruiters. This is the verified batch that you can actually share with anyone, and you can talk about it, you can talk about your experience. And of course, they will be very happy to see it, because a lot of recruiters personally reach out to me on LinkedIn, and they ask me, that, hey, about about the certificate for sure, and about, like verifying that if this is the user who has actually done this course or not. So of course, you already understand the value and importance of this, right? And of course, you have the option to, print, export, or, like, and all those things. You also have the option to download the batch directly, and then you can also share that. So you can share it with different, like in different formats. You can share it as a card, you can share it as a batch. Card means a certificate, right? So you can basically also edit your details. All of those things you can do via, you know, via this particular section. Okay, via this particular section. Okay, let's go back onto our Postman Academy. And yes, that was about it for the student expert training. And I hope you really enjoyed it as much as I did while, like teaching, and while, guiding you through all these steps. And yes, once again, congratulations. And yes, hope you share your learnings, and hope you share about your work and your certificate and badge onto, on your social media, like, like on your socials, like Twitter, LinkedIn. And also, if you really liked it, if you really, please feel free to also tag me. I'll be really happy to see how many of you have actually, you know received your badge after completing, after following along, with me till here, right? And yes, at the end, once again, I would quickly come here and share, if you have any questions, the right platform to reach out to us, or the best platform to reach out to us on, is going to be Discord. You can definitely just reach out to us on Discord, or you can also reach out to us on via studentprogram@postman.com. That is already mentioned in the FAQ page, right? So you can also go there and do it. And yes, if you want to connect with me and talk about tech or anything in general, you definitely can connect with me here. Linktree, that is my Linktree page, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And you have been, and of course, I really hope that you all have enjoyed it as much as I did. And yes, thank you so much. Bye.